Tomorrow morning, Ireland will again stand as a full member of the Eurozone, with the same rules, obligations, supports and opportunities as all other member states. From tomorrow, we will access the financial markets in the same way as other countries. This is an important step, but it is not an end in itself.
What are the conditions that create the economic crisis?
Conditions that created the economic crisis here still exist. There's the government is spending less money. In the years running up to the crisis in 2007, 2008, the government spent money really badly. They didn't get value for money. They didn't spend money effectively. They didn't spend money on where the areas of greatest social need were, and they essentially frittered away a boom.
The government reduced wages during the austerity. Now that they exit the bailout, what plans do they have in place for workers, most especially young workers?
What they're trying to do is to lower wages across the board, especially for young workers. They're trying to, and they're doing that. They're also in the process of reducing bit by bit, every year, bit by bit, reducing any kind of benefits, so that they face kind of working for low wages, very low wages, or starvation. Now, that's the whole approach they've adopted. And that's the same approach that's being adopted elsewhere. But if everybody does that, if everybody reduces wages, if everybody cuts social spending, then all you're doing is lowering the level of demand at the European economy, the global economy as a whole.
Is the present job creation policy helping people to get back to work?
The government has had job creation policies all of my adult life. It has had initiative after initiative, but each one has been flawed, because most inequality happens from the moment you're born. And the problems that people have getting to work and the problems of welfare dependency happens from the moment you're born. Families are not being helped in the way they should be in terms of skills of getting children into school, helping them with their homework. The schools themselves, the classes are too big. So from the moment children are born, from their first steps, they're being disadvantaged. So you want to create jobs, you want to tackle inequality in the workplace, that's where you begin.
On one hand, they're saying the country is recovered. The other hand, saying the crisis is not over yet. They're doing the same in Britain, and in both cases, they have to justify the austerity policies. So by saying there's still a crisis, at the same time, pretending that there's a recovery. So this is most of what they're saying has to do with political, electoral management rather than any serious economic analysis.
The EU measures are always debt on the basis of percentage of GDP. So will the government say the networks of the debt has changed since the bailout exit?
Cutting government debt is it's a bit like a game of smoke and mirrors, right? The EU measures our debt on the basis of its percentage of GDP. So if the economy grows, even though the physical net worth of the debt mightn't change, its percentage of our national wealth will go down. So that's what the government are in some sense betting on. There's been very low economic growth, so our physical debt seems to be relatively high. But a few years of high growth in the Irish economy, the debt level as a percentage of what was happening in the economy would decrease.
The bulk of the Irish debt is illegal and immoral. It was imposed on the Irish population in order to protect the banks, in order to protect the property elite and financial elite, and it should be rejected. It's imposed, and they've taken on the debt relative to GDP, to national income, is continuing to rise, and that's the point.
With the rise of property prices across the country over the past 12 months, experts caution that the market is still dysfunctional, with low levels of transactions and a shortage of supply in some areas, putting unrealistic pressure on prices in some urban areas.
The banks are underwater. The house prices here are still being kept artificially high, deliberately. So it's something like huge tens of thousands of people haven't been able to pay their mortgages. You know, even in 2 or 3 years haven't paid any back because they can't afford it. The banks don't want to evict them because they're afraid that if they do evict them, then the prices are going to collapse.
However, the country's trade, especially the export sector, remains dominated by foreign multinationals. Exports contribute significantly to national income.
If you look here in a given year, our economy is distorted by multinationals declaring profit here because there's very low tax, and by huge industries like the pharmaceutical sector that actually employ very little people and have very little impact on the local economy.
The point is that in the economies in Europe are dependent upon having, in order to sustain themselves, are dependent upon having high levels of income amongst their workers and the population as a whole. When that income is declining, how are they going to recover?
If the austerity is not over, does this mean the people will continue to experience spending cut, tax increase? Well, if it's so, then it has concern that the recovery is built on sand and will not last.